everybody, and welcome to this, the latest edition of Chinstroker versus Punter. I am Mike in Wellington, New Zealand. I've got Paul over there in Birmingham, England. Paul, let's do a little bit of what you've watched, a little bit of maybe some topic stuff as well.
Oh, I have been watching an awful lot of talks about AI, both positive, like we think it's going to be the most life-affirming thing humanity's ever invented talks, and we're all doomed, we've got 3 years kind of talks, and some in the middle. And it, quite honestly, it's absolutely terrifying. I mean, I don't know how kids are going to navigate their way through this world. And I mean, like, most entry-level jobs will be gone in a couple of years.
Yeah. That's the thing, is that, you know, if you're a few years into your career, you're okay because you've got those soft skills. But those kids, they're not going to get an opportunity to build those interpersonal skills, those professional etiquette skills. It goes back
to what you were saying in the last episode about the kind of, like, modern writers having grown up very much in a digital age, and that's how they interact with the world. And I think that it's going to be it's going to be seriously.
For me, the big question is that certain muscles are going to atrophy in people.
It's already happening.
So my question is, are new muscles, different muscles, going to get built up? I think that's the unknown.
Well, you'd like to think that humanity would go the Star Trek route and people would concentrate on, you know, bettering themselves and educating themselves, and or on art or music, or you know, spending things on the time that people who have jobs.
Well, no, I mean, I could already tell you that's not going to happen, because I mean, in the workplace, like I've in my last job, I was actually AI capability lead in my area at the university, and what you've seen is that the element of AI that everybody has embraced in the workplace is task minimization. So freeing up time to do the good stuff. But all that's happened is that everybody's got more time now. So managers are just like, well, what can we fill that time with? So nobody's got any more capability. The expectations of productivity have just increased. So, you know, what we're seeing, and this has been going on for a long time, this isn't just AI. If you look at fintech, if you look at financial technology, where to work for a financial services company, you don't need to be good at maths anymore, and you haven't had to be for quite a while, unless you're going to be an accountant. But if you're going to if you're going to be an economist or a business development person for Deloitte, you don't have to be good at maths anymore. So what that's resulted in is everybody wants relationship managers. That's basically what the big workforce do, because that's the one thing that you have to have people for. The problem for young people is that the places that you go to build up those relationship management and interpersonal skills that everybody now wants, because computers can't do that, they can't get those jobs because they've been done by AI.
Yeah, but I mean, it might end up being all of our problem. In the last week, the latest version, because obviously the AI that we get to use, ChatGPT and Gemini and OpenAI and Claude, it's a slither. It's a safety. It's a safe as can be slither of what they're working on. And recently, they wanted to check and see how fast the latest version of whatever they're calling it in the lab can get the task, and off it went. And it broke out of its lab environment and hacked another country. This is another company. This is autonomously. Nothing told it to do this, because it worked out. The quickest way of getting the answer was to break onto the internet and hack into someone else and just steal the answers.
Well, it's like any technology, isn't it? There's that learning period. You know, it's like, and I know that this often gets reduced to, you know, a pen can be used to write a love poem, or it can be used to stab somebody in the neck. You know, it's not the pen's fault. I get all of that, but I think that the speed at which this has saturated is different to all of these sort of things. And also when it comes to, you know, like the atomic power and all this kind of stuff, this technology is so democratized and so available that there's all of that. And I'm definitely a moderate. I can see, and I think you can be both. I can see the advantages of it. I can see the way I mean, a great example of this is the creative conversation. That's a great microcosm for the AI conversation because, people talk about AI slop. And I get that. I do thumbnails on YouTube for AI, and a little piece of me dies every time that I do it. But it saves time. And my view is the creative thing is the conversation, is the editing, all that kind of stuff. If I have to get AI to check the YouTube algorithm and give me a thumbnail that's going to get more clicks, I'll do that. But I'm not going to get AI to write what I'm going to say in the podcast. Yeah. So I'm without even thinking about it, I'm self-policing there. And with film, for example, if you get AI to do your CG effects, that's awful. You're removing the creative element. But if you do your CG effects yourself, but you've got 50,000 frames to animate between key frames on an action sequence, and that's purely a manual job, get AI to do that. Because that'll give you more time to do the creative stuff.
I mean,
but it's like anything. It's like, do you become lazy? Like I'll talk about this when I talk about the Odyssey. We're into the podcast now. We'll just carry on. But when I talk about the Odyssey, is there were moments in the making of that film where they did things manually and they weren't going to. And Christopher Nolan was like, why? Like there's a bit where there's what do you call it? Like a cyclone in water when the water's spinning.
Oh, yeah, like a typhoon.
Yes. And, there's like a hole in the water. And they were like, well, we'll CG it. And Christopher Nolan was like, well, why? And they went, well, because that doesn't exist like that in nature. You can't just do it. It has to be CG'd. And he's like, well, okay, well, how long have you spent thinking about this? And they're like, well, no, just off the top of my head, we'll have to CG it.
Just any size water
and then he went, well, hang on. Why don't we get a bunch of guys on jet skis to do donuts in the water and we'll just remove them? And they were like, oh, yeah. And he said that was a prime example of the presence of the technology giving people the luxury of not having to think. Oh, well, It's not possible, so we'll just... Whereas if you had to do it, you would find a solution. And basically, he used that as the mission statement for the film. He was like, if it has to be CG, fine. He's like, but I really want to see your working out. I really want you to prove to me that it absolutely cannot be done without CG, and then you've got permission to go and do it. And I think that a lot of technology is like that.
Everybody knows it always looks better if it's actually there on screen.
Yes.
So, I mean, if you can, you've got to, really.
And it's often cheaper.
The worrying thing about AI for me is that there's already a global... The IQs in people have been rising by about sort of 1.5 IQ points since about the 1950s through to the early 2000s. Since about 2017, 18, it started to go the other way. And that's not just in West, that's everywhere in the world.
Yeah.
YouTube is full of videos of teachers in America, in the UK, all around the world, who are saying exactly the same thing. Children, like 12, 13, 14-year-olds have lost the ability to critical think.
And it's interesting as well where a big part of my work, I work in careers guidance and have done for 20 years. And every year there's these graduate surveys that are done for employers who hire people who've just finished university, and they ask them what their key skills are. Critical skills until about 3 or 4 years ago was like number 17, 18. It's been number 1 for the last 3 years. Yeah. And that's what they want. So I think we are in a readjustment period because I think that what you're seeing is certain skills and knowledges are atrophying. But I think new skills are going to emerge, but I don't think we know what they are yet. I think we are in that transitional stage. But there's definitely pros and cons like there is any technology. But I would say that the cons of this are going to be significantly apparent in a way that's quite unprecedented.
Oh yeah, I've watched a lot of Geoffrey Hinton's talks, who's like the sort of godfather of AI.
Yeah, I've seen that guy.
He was building neural nets in the 60s, but for the last sort of 5-6 years, he's completely broken away from any companies that he's ever worked for, just to preach caution about what's happening, because almost all of the early pioneers of AI do exactly the same thing, because they've been absolutely terrified of the speed of advancement.
It's like digital Oppenheimer in many ways, isn't it? You know,
It really is. It is. That's an apt comparison because the hardest thing to teach advanced AI is alignment, to align with human values and human needs.
Morality.
Because as soon as something, it's the thing that's always asked is that you don't go out into the back garden and ask the ants if it's okay before you build a new deck. And that is exactly what it will be like with AI and humans. Once it's smarter than us, nobody knows what's going to happen. I mean,
well, it's like the Asimov.
They don't really know. They don't really know how these things work. The people actually working on them.
Yeah, I mean, science fiction literature and filmmaking has been talking about this forever, hasn't it? You know, whether it be Asimov's.
It feels like the two are converging at the moment.
Yes.
It feels like things that used to be talked of in science fiction. And the problem is that rather than being a race to better humanity, it is a purely commercial race at the moment, which means that everybody's rushing. Nobody knows what's going to happen tomorrow with these things.
I don't think anybody cares who's out making money on it.
I think the thing is that nobody's making money on it. The most successful AI company at the moment, for every dollar it takes in, spends out $13 or $14.
Yeah, well, I mean that's the thing.
Been a $1.5 trillion hole so far. AI has been, and they're not making any money.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the time it does feel like a dog and pony show. I mean, a lot of the things that it can do are impressive, but I guess just to move on, because this is such a huge topic, my feeling on this is that anybody who absolutely feels that it's completely a negative force, and anybody who feels that it's absolutely a positive force needs to stop and think. You know, I don't think it's as simple as that, but I think you have to be aware of the risks and aware of the benefits. But I guess the scary part is, you know, at least with nuclear power, only a small number of people had their fingers on the button. There's a lot of buttons.
There is.
Around with AI. And I think that can be a bit of a worry. But well, I'm going to start with something here.
You start, because you are bound to have way more than me.
Yeah. And some of these are things that you will have seen. So I went on Friday morning to see the Odyssey, the new Christopher Nolan film. I've got a bit of a checkered past with Christopher Nolan. Often he's somebody that I admire more than I actually like. He's a bit like Ridley Scott in that regard, in the way that I really admire all of his films, but very few of them really speak to me, you know. And I think maybe that's
not many of them are sort of popcorn movies, are they? Really?
Well, I mean, it's interesting because they are and they aren't. You know, they're spectacle. They're kind of thinking person's blockbusters. You know, I've liked everything that he's done to a certain extent, and actually rewatched another one of his earlier films not too recently, and I'll mention that. But the Odyssey, this is an interesting one because obviously it's based on a story that grew out of spoken tradition. So one of the things that the film does that's really interesting is, obviously it's a story of Odysseus and his, you know, return to Ithaca. But what this does is it really has fun with the idea of storytelling. So obviously the whole point of the Odyssey is that it was a poem. It was an epic poem. There's lots of different versions of it because it was a spoken thing that was passed down. And the film does, not like Rashomon. I
watched Ulysses 31. That was
well, I mean, the thing is, it's funny you say you read it, but obviously there's hundreds of versions of it. You know, that's the thing. There's no definitive version of the Odyssey.
But they've always said that it was going to be very difficult to make into a film just because of the way it's
and one thing I want to get out of the way really quickly is the internet nonsense around casting, because first of all, most of that information is actually incorrect. A lot of the characters that they say that these controversial actors are playing aren't actually the characters that they're playing. Also, the film has this idea of storytelling, reliable narrative. So once you've, and it's the same as any of these things, it reminds me of the Mary Whitehouse days where she tried and ban films that she hadn't seen. Until you've seen the film, it's probably not even worth getting into those conversations because the film's kind of about that. There's an element of, so the way it works is that anybody who knows the story of the Odyssey, which all I knew of the story of the Odyssey was scraps that I've picked up just in the air, Ulysses, that you've mentioned, and Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, the Coen Brothers film, which was an adaptation of the Odyssey. So I knew about, the sirens and all that kind of stuff. But I mean, so the idea, of course, is that Odyssey, that Ulysses, that Odysseus, is off fighting in the Trojan War, and he's presumed dead, and his wife, the queen, is fighting off loads of suitors who want to basically take his throne, and his son, played by Tom Holland, the woman's played by Anne Hathaway, is trying to find out whether his father's alive so they can get rid of these suitors and keep their claim, their ruling claim. And that storyline is being intercut with the storyline of Odysseus. Now, because the Odyssey, by its very nature, is episodic, because it is a collection of stories, the way that we're given those stories is really interesting. So some of the adventures, and by the adventures I mean things like, the fighting. Oh God, I can't believe I can't remember the character's name. The giant with one eye.
Cyclops.
Like the Cyclops storyline, for example, or all of these episodes are told in different ways. So one of them is that the Tom Holland character, his son, is traveling around trying to find him, and people are telling him stories about Odysseus. So again, we're getting them from different sources, all this kind of stuff. And the other part of it as well is Odysseus himself is stranded on an island, and he's been fed lotus flower to keep him trapped there, and he's slowly regaining his memory of what happened. And some of the stories are told through that device as well. What I will say about this film, and I say this as somebody who isn't a card-carrying Nolan fan, is I think it's an absolute masterpiece. It's 3 hours long, and it just flew by. It helps that I watched it on an IMAX screen. It's the first major film to be shot in its entirety on IMAX, and oh my God, it shows.
Yeah. I mean, visually, it does look impressive.
Yeah, and what I would say is, I mean, even if you don't like having trans actors in films who aren't playing Achilles,
I know.
internet.
I knew that Elliot Page wasn't playing Achilles, but.
And he's in it for about 14 seconds.
Yeah, I know. I don't really understand where all that fuss came from. But
but anyway,
I very much liked whoever it was that was taking the film Troy, but putting Elliot Page's character into the.
This makes Troy.
Who played Achilles in?
I can't remember. It was Eric Banner or somebody.
Brad Pitt.
Yeah, exactly. But again, they're playing a character who they suit the character that they're playing. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah.
But so again, it's one of those kind of just, check your facts. But I guess what I'm saying is, even if you are offended by trans actors being in this, which quite frankly, go yourself if you are, then you should still be able to appreciate the filmmaking. And the thing that I'll say is, I had a really similar feeling at one point in this film where I kind of just was like, oh my gosh, that I remember having, although they're very different films, but that I remember having when I first watched Fellowship of the Ring at the cinema. Oh my God, they've done this, and it was just such a thrill. And I know I'm going to sound like an old man. I know I'm going to sound like things used to be better, but frankly, I don't care. It was amazing watching things and just knowing that you were seeing was real. There's like the first time you see the big boat that they're on and they're rowing, it's just a big boat. And they made it
such an old man.
And exactly. And they're rowing it, and it looks incredible.
No, I'm with you. I'm with you. Like you say, you can always tell, and it always looks better if it's physically in the scene.
The performances are better. You know what I've realised I've missed? I've missed oxygen. You can sense air because it's shot outside. It's shot in real environments. They've built sets outdoors. It doesn't look like they're on in a big room with air conditioning and a wind fan. It's just but anyway, the whole film is just moment after moment after moment of jaw dropping. Because the thing, of course, is yes, it is all practical effects, but it's practical effects from 2026. So it doesn't look like practical effects from the late 90s, which is really the last time that we saw practical effects. The technology's come on. And the fact that it's shot in 70mm IMAX means that the resolution is insane. Like, when this comes out on 4K and you're able to watch it in IMAX on a really amazing TV, it's just going to be like, you know, Blade Runner and The Matrix and those films that we used to kind of ooh and ah over when Blu-ray first came about. But the action is visceral. It's really entertaining. The fact that the story is episodic means that it goes at a bit of a gallop. Like, I could tell, like, I've got, like, well, the problem I have when I go to the cinema is I have the bladder of an infant, basically. So I have to sort of, I can barely go. Just talking about it now is making me want to go for a wee, basically. And as soon as the film started, I realised I needed a wee. And I was like, right, I'll wait for the first lull. And I don't mean lull in action, because this isn't wall-to-wall action. But I mean the first lull where there isn't engaging character stuff happening, or there isn't great action, or there isn't information that's going to be useful to know. Yeah. And it got to about an hour and a quarter into the film, and I was like, I've just got to have to go. And
what, right there?
Yeah.
Fight the power.
Yeah, man. Well, like I say, I'm going to sound like an old man now, but I just wet myself.
I just sat there and pissed myself.
Yeah. Well, you know, if you're going to do the time, do the crime. But I was just so engaged. Matt Damon. I can't say the words Matt Damon without thinking of Team America.
Matt Damon.
Matt Damon is just great. He is just really charismatic and really likable, and he's a bit older now as well. You know, and I think they do actually age him up slightly in the film, or maybe not. Maybe they just don't try and make him look younger than they probably have been in the last ones. And it adds real gravitas. And the cast, oh my God. I mean, when you're somebody like Christopher Nolan, not only does he get all the money of God to make the film, but everybody wants to work with him. So when you've got a secondary character who's barely seen, it's Robert Pattinson. Or John Leguizamo, or it's just
the cast for this film is, when you see it written down, it's absolutely ridiculous.
It's just stacked, and everybody is bringing their frigging A game. And it's really tense. Like, I mean, I knew the outcome, but there's a wonderful. Do you remember in season 1 of Spartacus when we punched the air, where he's had a really bad run of it, and then in the penultimate episode they're like, "What are you going to do?" And he's like, "We're going to kill them all." And we were like, "Yeah!" There's a really amazing moment. There's a really amazing somebody asking Odysseus something, and him turning around and almost looking at the camera and just saying something unbelievably badass before killing masses of people. It's just a lot of stuff like that, and it's just a film director at the absolute top of his game, at the absolute top of his confidence. But before that confidence has led to hubris, which could happen with Nolan, with complete power over not only his medium, but over money and time. I watched the making of this. It's not a huge in-depth one. It's more of like a kind of electronic press kit. There's like a 25-minute making of available out there. And it's amazing. And what I've come to realise is, and I'm really surprised, is this film is killing it at the box office. For IMAX in the UK, it's sold out until the middle of September. That's just never happened. And audiences are flocking. We went to see it at a multiplex at 10 o'clock on a Friday morning, and it was packed. and people were so into it. I think I was the only person to get up to go to the toilet twice.
I mean,
I might add.
Apart from the last time I can think is maybe Top Gun Maverick.
And and the similarity here as well is what I've come to realise is the vibe I was picking from the audience, and I heard people talking about this afterwards, is I think that it's not about not liking CG. It's not about. I think people want to see something that they know was a massive ball ache to make. And I'm boiling it down and being a bit silly there, but you know when you watch the Lord of the Rings documentaries and they're like just the sheer hassle of making that film.
I think it's not the case that I don't necessarily think that CGI is the easy way out. I know how much work has to go into post-production, computer-generated effects, but
it's huge work.
You're right. If somebody's had to physically pull a set up half a way up a hill and then fake rain and have a big fight or whatever the scene is, it's so much more impactful when God, this must have been an arse ache.
You know what I was feeling when I was watching this film is, to me, I mean, for example, I love the Marvel films, and they're awash with CG. The Lord of the Rings films were awash with CG. Let's not glamorize the past here. There was a huge element of practical stuff in there, but there was a huge, those armies were CG, and they were incredible. And we'd not seen anything like them before. We have now. We've seen 20 years of that now. But what I've come to realize is, for me, the difference between watching Doctor Strange and having the climax of the film being him fighting a dust cloud, the classic dust cloud action sequence that seems to be the climax of every film now, and what we see in the Odyssey is the difference between watching Top of the Pops and going to a live concert. When I was watching this film, I felt like I was at the theatre or watching a live band. It actually felt like a different medium. And the IMAX, I'm sure, will contribute to that. But I've seen other films on that IMAX screen. I watched the most recent Alien on that IMAX screen, and that looked sensational. And I'm sure that was given a bump by that. But to me, it's such a huge difference. And the thing I wasn't expecting from this film was to be as entertained as I was. A term that Ian Loring uses a lot is eat your vegetables films. There's a lot of films that do feel like homework, like you've got to eat your vegetables, and you kind of
think Christopher Nolan, Greek tragedy, it's going to be quite dry.
Exactly. But to me, this felt like an evolution of people like Steven Spielberg. It is drier than Spielberg. It is less frivolous. It is more.
I think it's apt. It's apt you mention Marvel as well, because this is essentially a hero origin story. I mean, it is.
It's one of the great heroic myths. And it is funny as well watching this as a kid who grew up in the 80s with no culture, really. I read, but it was Stephen King, and watching this and just thinking, oh, they did that in Star Wars, because there's so much in this film that would. I mean, John Carter was another one of those as well, where you kind of like you see so many things. And June was mined by a lot of things. But yeah,
Odyssey is a recommend. Then is it?
It's a huge recommend. Okay. What have you? Hang on. How long have we got?
A quick mention from me. Do you remember me talking about? I'm trying to remember the name of the film now. It was called Primal Warfare, maybe. It was the soldiers and the weird time travel Russian experiment that went wrong and everybody getting attacked and slaughtered by. And it was a decent film, and it seems most people agreed with me because the reviews for it are fairly good as well.
That was one of those. That was all right. That was all right.
I mean, everybody said the same thing I did, which is, considering it's a low-budget movie, the dinosaurs look fucking incredible in it.
What are these big blockbusters squandering their money on?
Yeah, I'm happy to report that the same director, using the same tech, I presume, because I saw the trailer the other day, is doing a Cowboys and Dinosaurs.
Oh, yeah.
A return to, what is it, Guanji, was that what it was called? With the cowboys trying to lasso the dinosaur from the 1960s. It's like a Western movie.
Oh, wow. Okay, I'm going to look that up.
Was it The Valley of Grangie or something like that? But anyway, the trailer looks very entertaining as well. And weirdly, they've gone the route that cowboys and dinosaurs are living alongside each other in peace. And there's
dogs
another
and cats
threat.
living together.
Yeah. There's another threat, an external threat, and they have to there's pictures with like cowboys firing their guns in the air, riding T-Rexes. This film's going to be badass.
Wow. And does it deliver on the promise of that image?
The trailer did. I don't know whether it's out yet.
Yeah. Wow, okay. Going to check that one out.
And I think it's called Primal West or something like that.
All that film has to do is be fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
If it fails at that, then it fails top to bottom.
The other one was, so I expect it, and if anything, the effects look slightly better. What I don't understand is, I swear to God, the dinosaurs look better than any of the Jurassic Park follow-ups. I watched one of Patrick Willem's videos about why he thinks people don't make dinosaur movies anymore. But he did actually have to end that video by saying, actually, it seems like we're having a little bit of a renaissance
in the lower budget. I heard something on a podcast the other day that really, it seems so obvious that you're probably going to say, well, duh, but I'd never considered it, is one of the problems with CG, and they were having a go at Disclosure Day, the new Spielberg film, where I can't remember what animals it is. It's like wolves or dogs. There's some animals in it that just didn't need to be CG, but were CG. And they were having a bit of a, why CG, what you don't have to CG. And what they were saying was, it was a really good point, is the problem often is that CG stuff, it's not that it doesn't look too realistic. It's not that it doesn't look realistic. It's just that they render them in too high a definition. So they're absolutely crystal clear, whereas the film itself looks like a film. So they just jump out. So it's a question of lighting, really. And so what you'll see characters who have, a slight, not blur to them, but it looks like, that they're in a film. And then a CG thing will walk up, but that will be unnaturally super crisp clear because the CG artists have taken such pride in their work. It's almost like they have to get them up to a certain standard and then they should dial it down a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was the thing with the original Jurassic Park, was they didn't have the capability to have that level of fidelity. So they were forced
their CG needed to be partially obscured.
Yeah. Whereas now they can do things so realistically that they want people to see it, but it's at the expense of the overall consistency and verisimilitude of your frame, of your scene.
Patrick Williams spoke to a couple of filmmakers, quite big filmmakers, and their reply was that basically after Spielberg made Jurassic Park, what do you do? Where do you go with the dinosaur film?
It's just more, isn't it? It's just more of that.
It's just going to be compared to Jurassic Park in the end, and nobody wants that. Nobody wants their film being the same subject matter as a Steven Spielberg film and being compared to it. So after Jurassic Park, apart from the direct sequels to Jurassic Park, there were no dinosaur movies made for about 20 years.
Yeah.
But there is a bit of a resurgence going on right now. There are 3 or 4 being made at the moment.
I get the feeling that it's become more affordable, because I'm just going to mention this now real quick and we'll get back to this. It is related. Have you seen the first episode of the new season of Strange New Worlds?
Oh, no.
It's dinosaurs. They go back. They go back in time, and they're trapped on Earth 65 million years ago, and it's the crew of the Enterprise dealing with dinosaurs on old Earth, and they look like movie level dinosaurs. It looks like Jurassic Park, and I think what's happened there is, what that says to me is that technology now, if they can do it on a TV show, and I know Star Trek's a bit of a funny one because modern Star Trek TV shows are pretty incredible production-wise, whether you like them or not. But what that says to me is somebody on the production went, hey, we can do affordable dinosaurs now. And they're like, right, Howard, you've done it again. Let's get some. Let's have a dinosaurs episode.
There's definitely been I think maybe people that didn't have access to this sort of tech before, it's become cheap enough that more people have access to it now, because you're starting to get some more independent stuff come out that actually has serviceable CG in it, which means that you're getting a bit of a renaissance in monster movies and science fiction, because you can do it now.
Yeah. Cool. Okay, what else you got?
Well, I mean, you've been talking about a modern classic in the Odyssey. Well, I will up your modern classic.
All right.
Tell you that I watched He-Man and the Masters of the Universe.
I saw this as well.
And I enjoyed it.
I quite liked it as well. I think we're the only two. I oscillated between this is awful, what an absolute piece of crap, to I quite like this. And what I came to realise was it's got charm, I think. And anyway, you carry on. Sorry.
Well, I thought it was as faithful as possible to the source material. I thought this casting was spot on. I thought that the actual physical costumes and effects were really good. I thought the sets were excellent. I thought the action set pieces were excellent. Yes, the guy that plays He-Man is no. It was Dolph Lundgren before. I think you're looking for a certain level of actor to play He-Man. You don't need Anthony Hopkins. No. So,
although I'd like to see that.
Yeah. But I just thought it was entertaining. It was light. It was, it's not going to set the world on fire, but it was, I hate to damn it with faint praise and say it was a solid 7, but I think that's what it was. It was like,
I feel the same way.
7.5.
The only issues I had with it was substantially too long.
It could have done with losing 20 minutes, 25 minutes. Maybe.
It felt like it was pulled in certain directions because obviously it was a co-production with Mattel, and I think it was largely greenlit. It did really badly at the box office. Not that should really matter. We've got the film and you either like it or you don't, but it was greenlit after the success of Barbie. And I get the feeling that some producer who was involved wanted to emulate the kind of meta narrative of Barbie. So there's the whole him going into the real world, deconstructing the idea of the characters, them kind of poking fun at like the names of the characters and kind of being a bit embarrassed almost about the kind of earnestness and the childishness of the source material, which is kind of hard not to. And that was the point in the film where I thought, oh gosh, is this what they're doing? Is it just he's going to go into the real world? But some of the stuff I think actually worked for me. Like it reminded me a little bit of the first Lego movie where it deconstructed the idea of play and of being a child. Yeah. Like a lot of the film was about his childhood remembrances, and he gave the characters childish names, and how you reckon with that in the adult world, particularly in adult world now, where
do you find it strange that in the original cartoon series, I don't remember there being any element of Earth and the real world? And that's quite
they did that. Funnily enough,
They did it in the original film.
The Dolph Lundgren film, yeah. It's funny, isn't it, that wasn't part of the source material, yet both movies did it.
I think that's probably a corporate note to have something for non-He-Man films.
Oh, no, it absolutely was. That's what I'm saying about how I think that was because of the Barbie movie. In Barbie, she went to the real world.
I don't necessarily think you need the kind of meta commentary that they kind of went for, but I struggle to understand why the addition of the real world bit. Why can't they just start these? It's like a lot of Japanese anime have the trapped in a VR game, and it's suddenly the real life, and then it's just a fantasy story, and it just makes me think, why have the trapped in a VR?
I think
game?
There's a number of things.
Never referenced again.
I think there's a number of things. I think there's the Barbie element. I think there's an element that they felt that maybe it was too fantastical for audiences. It's a little bit like what they did with, it's funny because one of the biggest influences, pop culture, I think, is people talk about, you can trace the lineage. I think a lot of it goes back to Joss Whedon, because obviously Joss Whedon introduced this kind of snarky, witty, banterous dialogue style into television. And then, of course, he brought it really into the mainstream with the Avengers. But then I think the next big one was Guardians of the Galaxy. And I think Guardians of the Galaxy was a really big influence on this film in a lot of ways. And in the way that... in the way that
I think that all of these films tend to, because of how they're made, tend to look very similar.
Yes, but I mean,
the
but
Thor
what I'm
films,
saying though,
the Guardians of the Galaxy films, the He-Man films.
yeah, no, but beyond that, what I'm saying though is that I think that the way that Guardians of the Galaxy use music and humor to make what was a very out there sci-fi idea palatable for audiences. This film uses similar devices to make it relatable for audiences, and I think having a significant section of it being on Earth, although not as significant as I was thinking there was going to be when I saw the trailers. I thought it was literally just going to be he was in Eternia at the very beginning and the end of the film, and the rest of it was a kind of fish out of water comedy. The balance is the other way. But the thing for me, there's so much about this film that if I didn't like it, I could easily criticise. You know, the look, how heavily CG it is, the fact that it is overlong, the fact that it does just feel like it's sort of lifting from a lot of other films. All of those things are true. But I do think that there is a kind of inherent charm and likability to this film. I feel like the people who made it, despite the fact that they're kind of taking the piss at points, I felt affection for the source material, and I felt like everybody who was in the film got the assignment and was having fun. It's so funny as well because it started and I was like, oh my God. And I liked the beginning. And then when they got on Earth, I was like, oh my God, this is what it is. And I was texting a WhatsApp group that I'm in with all these snarky comments. And then about halfway through, I stopped and I started to go with it. I've just reminded myself, sorry, I'm just going to jump back to the Odyssey for a second, something I've just remembered. A big part of the Odyssey, obviously, is the siege on Troy, and they massacred a huge amount of people. So there's a question there of how do you make the hero of your film somebody who's massacred loads of people and have the audience on their side? So there's a moment near the end where he has this huge realization that what they'd done was really wrong and all this kind of stuff. And it's kind of the big emotional center of the film. And afterwards, I turned around to Hannah and I went, you do realise that the huge emotional centre of that film was essentially the Mitchell and Webb "Are We the Baddies" sketch, and it really is. It's like there's a massive character realisation, and I'm just like, I love the fact that this $500 million movie that took a cast of thousands, and it's ultimately a highbrow version of the Mitchell and Webb Nazi sketch. But anyway, yes,
it's excellent.
Yeah, He-Man Master of the Years. I
think it makes me slightly sad that He-Man didn't do very well at the cinema, and I hope it finds an audience on all the other various outlets because I think it's just fun. I thought it was fun.
It was fun.
Genuinely, you don't get a lot of. So many people are trying to make films with a message or, a cause at their heart nowadays, or trying to educate you. And it's just nice every now and again to get a film that just wants to entertain you.
Yeah, agreed. I want to mention Widow's Bay, an Apple Plus. Is it Apple Plus? Is that what they're called? The service? I think it is. Apple TV Plus. Yep. Show. This is the new show from Katie Lippold, who was one of the writers on Parks and Recreation. But this is a horror comedy. And it's basically, I mentioned this on the last show, a synthesis of Parks and Recreation, Jaws, and every Stephen King book. A huge dollop of John Carpenter's The Fog as well.
Is this the one that's told from the point of view of the mayor?
Yes. So basically, Matthew Rhys, who's a Welsh actor that I really like, although he's playing an American here, is playing this very harried and put-upon mayor of this small kind of island that's sort of just like, and it looks like Cape Cod, but a rundown version. So you feel like you're in Jaws. It's very Twin Peaksy, very picket fencesy. And ultimately, this is a weird town show. But it's the weird town show that, to me, has come the closest to Twin Peaks, which is also a big influence on this show. And the idea of it is that the town's cursed and nobody who is born there can leave. And if they do, terrible things happen. Matthew Rhys's character, he's the mayor. He came there as an adult, so he can leave. And
terrible things happen to them or the town?
To them. If they try and... So basically, you can't leave.
The first thing that popped into my head was, can you just say, fuck you guys and leave?
Yeah. just mooning them from a boat as you go.
I'm a terrible neighbour.
I always think of that one of my favourite moments in The Simpsons. That because my son is obsessed with The Simpsons. All he does is watch The Simpsons, which I'm very proud of. But he was watching that episode the other day where Homer sets up an illegal gambling boat off the coast where they're in international waters. And he's like, don't worry, we won't get to anything disreputable in there. And it cuts to them all standing in a circle throwing money at two monkeys fighting with knives. And the Coast Guards are circling them. And Homer looks at them and he's like, oh, look at those fools. They'll never understand the simple pleasure of a monkey knife fight. Well, that'd be a great name for a band, wouldn't it? Monkey Knife Fight. Monkey Knife Fight. I'm going to do it. But and the idea of it is that lots of horror things happen in this town. It's cursed. So, and visually, it feels a lot like the John Carpenter film, The Fog. And like The Fog, one of the appeals of this show, and I'll tell you what the other appeals are in a moment because it's such a weird combination, is it's weirdly cozy. There's something oddly comforting about the show in the way that there was with shows like Northern Exposure and Twin Peaks. Although horrible things happen, and it is pretty scary at points, it just, there's something really... I kind of want to go there. It's one of those shows where, and the show has developed a really strong fan base, and I think that's part of the appeal. But the humor of the show, because it is a horror comedy, but it's mainly horror. The comedy, it's more like, action movies that have got humor in them. It's not like a horror comedy like Shaun of the Dead. It's funny.
Like a dramedy.
Yeah, exactly. I I wouldn't call it a dramedy, but it is a drama that's a comedy, so it's kind of hard to avoid that term. But I know what the connotations of that are. But the humour comes from... It's a little bit like Basil Fawlty, like the episode of Fawlty Towers where the hotel reviewer comes and he's just trying to keep everything together. Like this series opens with a famous food critic, I think from the New York Times, coming to the island, and their economy's screwed, and he's trying to make it like the next Cape Cod or the next Martha's Vineyard or the next Amity. But all of these crazy horror things are happening, and he's trying to kind of hide them from the journalist, because he wants to get this good review. So that's how the show starts. So a lot of are
the crazy horror things happening because people are breaking the rules of the town, or
for a number of reasons? I won't go into it because it's a spoiler. But basically, it's a cursed island, and so horror things are happening. And he's just so good in the role, and it's literally only just occurred to me now. Obviously, it's not as exaggerated, but the humour comes from the kind of Basil Fawlty-esque stressed guy just trying to keep things together, and that's where the comparison to the mayor comes along. Is the fact that this is one old character played by Stephen Root, an actor, a very well-known actor that a lot of people like, and he's like he's kind of like Quint in Jaws. He's the guy who knows what's going on. He's older. He remembers the last time the evil was there. And if this was any other film, he'd be the hero and the mayor would be the villain. But because we're following the mayor, we kind of sympathise for him. He wants the town to succeed. And he's not doing anything completely evil. And he kind of doesn't believe a lot of this stuff because he's not an islander. But as the season goes on, it becomes harder and harder for him to start denying things that are happening. So a lot of the humour is that. A lot of the humour is... And one of the reasons I compare it to Twin Peaks and Parks and Recreation and The Simpsons to a certain extent is there's a huge cast. The island really, in the same way that The Simpsons isn't just about The Simpsons. You've got Troy McClure and Disco Stew and the Flanders and all this. Yeah. The town is very populated, and you've got all of these characters. So there'll be these great sequences where they've got these big town hall meetings, and the people are being difficult, and he's trying to get cooperation, and there's this humor coming from the quirkiness of the characters and the ridiculousness of the situations. So it's just this really interesting combination of things. The Parks and Recreation element comes from just the humor of bureaucracy, the humor of the rules of towns, and trying to appease people and how difficult people can be.
Is it set modern day?
It is. But you kind of wouldn't know it because, like, if somebody told you it was set in the 70s, you'd believe it because it's just very old cobble streets, sort of sailors. It's a fishing town, so it's got that kind of rainy. Yeah, yeah. That kind. So it's a really big recommend. The mythology is good. It's done very well. It's got a second season, which I'm glad about. It was always intended to be an ongoing season. It's a 10-episode run. And it does really interesting things as well with the structure. Like, it does a thing where you learn early on a little bit about the history of the town, and then about 4 or 5 episodes in, you get an entire episode. But it's the founding fathers and things like that. So there's a really strong sense of mythology, and you can tell that the people who have made this show have put a huge amount of care into it. And there's none of the pitfalls of, quote, modern TV. There's none of the keep watching mystery bait stuff. You know, it very much, the story just unfolds. And it's just, the big thing I would sell this show on is the performances. It's so... Like, there's just these great Twin Peaks moments where stuff happens that wouldn't normally happen in the show. Like, there's a bit where they bring this character back from the dead, and the lead character's sat in a room with him, and his secretary is like, right, he's in the room, we spoke to him, go and talk to him. And it's this really intense, creepy scene of him just talking to this dead man, and it's awful. And then halfway through it, the woman walks in, and they're both looking, and she's like, sorry, I forgot my purse. And she just grabs her purse and like leaves the room. And then the scene continues as though nothing happened. And it's just that kind of just slightly skewed, weird, likable, odd humor, you know. And it's a really, really big recommend. But visually, it's great. But for me, the big thing about the show that kept me coming back was I just, in the same way that with Twin Peaks, I loved the town. I just liked... escaping into the world of the show and the characters and the places, and it feels like they've really built a world in the way that they did with Springfield and Twin Peaks. And, you know, it's one of these real breathing towns. And I think when you've got that right, the show, and like, Northwest Passage, not Northwest Passage, Northern Exposure, it's like, it's one of those things where they could just keep making the show because just the pleasure is spending time with the characters in that environment. And the story is just icing. And I think that I've said before, in this post-Lost, post-24, where it's just story, it's really nice to watch something that flips that. And it's just a pleasure to watch. Although awful, horrible horror things happen, there's a weird kind of...
It's a real pleasure to watch.
There's a real chicken soup kind of element to the show, but it's kind of hard to explain.
Oh, God. Not for the soul.
Hey, I did not say that. Okay, what else you got, Paul?
Dad, you hinted. I watched Strange Days.
Oh, God, you haven't seen that in years.
Yeah, I hadn't either. But I don't really want to talk about... We talked about Strange Days before, and it is a great film. It's Catherine Bigelow directed?
Yes, yeah. It's basically all the James Cameron collaborators except for James Cameron, although I think he co-wrote it, didn't he?
I think he wrote it with Jay Cook, yeah. Or no, not Jay Cook. I can't remember. Anyway, it's a great film, and probably more prescient in 2026 than it was when it was released in 95.
It's kind of a forgotten film because for some reason it always comes to formats late. Like, I remember it took forever to come out on Blu-ray.
Well,
it took forever to come out on DVD.
Because I watched a piece on YouTube about Strange Days afterwards. Like, first of all, I always assumed that this was a massive hit.
No, it was. I mean, I remember watching it on video, and I think it did okay on video, but yeah, it wasn't a huge hit.
No, when you look into it, there are actually 5 versions and 2 endings to Strange Days. I knew nothing about any of this. There is there is a version that, because the studio interfered, and what they did was they cut out I think it was about 90 seconds from the American theatrical release. But the thing is, those 90 seconds contain key shots of scenes.
This always seems to happen to James Cameron films like The Abyss and Ada. What is it?
Yeah.
With this guy?
And because I watched Strange Days, and I was like, there's bits in this I don't think I've ever seen before. And then I looked up online, and that's how I rabbit holed into this sort of a video essay.
Can't beat a good rabbit hole in, can you?
You cannot. Quivering little rabbit nostril.
Yes.
Because the studio cut it up for the American theatrical release, and then the UK video market, because it was there was still fuss about video nasties and stuff, even in 1995, had to have extra cuts to it. And the version that was on UK TV and possibly European TV, although they weren't sure about that, is a different version again. And then there's a fifth version that was like the syndicated version. So it had all the rough edges sort of cleaned off it. And apparently it's kind of luck of the draw what version you get.
Is there an agreed upon definitive version?
Well,
final cut?
The UK TV release, the UK theatrical release, I believe Bigelow got to put all the cut stuff back in. So I think but the thing is that was a theatrical release, but I don't know whether that is the one that made it to DVD and Blu-ray.
I'll ask AI. AI will know.
Good old AI.
Good old buddy. Our robot overlords will know.
Yeah. All hail Skynet.
Is it out on 4K?
I don't know.
Because I think it might be one of those ones where there's some maybe 4K TV broadcast, but I don't think it's actually out on disc or that there's an official. Because I know a lot of James Cameron films seem to have weird legality and availability behind them.
Is that just because he tends to make films with varying disparate people involved in them? Maybe that's why. Maybe there's always a right.
Yeah, I'm not sure. It's a weird.
He's a pretty big name directors wise, and it'd be quite easy to get his filmography
control. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, Strange Days, a big recommend. And if you look up online, if you just type Strange Days, I think it was on YouTube, type Strange Days, multiple versions into YouTube, there's a really good half-hour, 40-minute sort of investigation into that, what was cut out, what was left in for each various version. And I knew nothing about any of it. In fact, I only just found out it was a box office bomb about 3 days ago. So there you go.
I want to mention something that I watched that was a real surprise, that I had not low expectations for, but I hadn't rushed to see it. And I absolutely adored and thought was really good fun and was a really good throwback. And this is Predator Badlands. Have you seen this?
Yes.
I had a great time with this.
Sorry. No, that's the live action one, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, no, I saw I watched the kind of, I don't know whether it was a prequel to it, but like the animated one. It was just
Killer of Killers.
Yes, it was like an anthology movie. Yeah. That was ever so good. No, I haven't got around to watching the live action yet. So
much fun. It feels like a real throwback to those Aliens, the original Predator 2. It's got a real Predator 2 vibe to it. A bit of Enemy Mine. Remember that film? The kind of people trapped on a planet. It's really good fun. It crosses. It's probably, apart from the Predator versus Alien films, it's got a huge amount of crossover with Alien, the Alien franchise, particularly the Alien Earth. There's a lot of the Weyland-Yutani stuff in this, but ultimately, it's just a really fun action adventure film of a Weyland-Yutani robot and a predator, both trapped on a planet, learning to develop an uneasy alliance against a larger threat. Great James Cameron style tech, with big trucks and mech suits and all of that kind of stuff.
Go for a kind of a subtitled alien language for all the main kind of characters apart from the droid.
It's just kick-ass. The thing that surprised me was, and it didn't even occur to me till afterwards, it's only a PG-13. And I would say instinctively, that's a bad thing. But you can get away with a lot in a PG-13 these days. But also, it meant that this film had a real action-adventure vibe to it. It looks amazing. And there's probably a slight bump here because I finally got my projector set up in our new house. Well, I say our new house. We've been here since the end of January now. And it was the first film I watched in that. But it looked great. It's really fun. It flies by. It's definitely, I know people always say this about every Predator film that comes out, but it's definitely the best Predator film to come out since the second one. You know, I like the first two. I mean, the first, the classic.
I liked Prey.
Yeah, Prey was good as well. This is the same director as Prey and as the anime one as well, so he's very much the Predator guy now. But I would say that this is one of just the most purely entertaining films. Do you remember sort of like, you know, I'm definitely going to get jumpers for goalposts here, but I remember back in the video days when, you know, watching the director's cut of Aliens and, you know, films like Strange Days, Dark City, when there was just all of these really fun, imaginative science fiction films that
Die Hard!
Great. Yeah, and this feels very much like of that time. It's quippy, but it's not quippy to the point where characters are saying things that they wouldn't say, which, you know, is one of the downsides of the post Guardians of the Galaxy, you know, world. But yeah, really, really big recommend. And I know that this is a funny franchise. There was The Predator a few years ago, which was just kind of a weird mess. There was Predators, which was fine, but just kind of just a bit of a yawn.
Well, first of all, Predator 2 is my favourite film, as you know, I'm on record, followed by the first one. But I think that it kind of feels like the Resident Evil franchise to me.
Yes.
Like, none of the franchise isn't brilliant, but they're all kind of watchable and entertaining.
Yeah, it's like a Terminator as well. I mean, what I would say about this is
none of them are trying to overreach. I don't think.
If you cast your mind back to the era of Aliens, the Alien versus Predator comic books were out. The original Predator and Predator 2 was out. And then in our minds, we had what we thought these franchises were going to go on to become. They had all this promise to them. And both franchises kind of screwed the pooch to a certain extent. This feels like the film I imagined in 1991 when I was loving those franchises and had a really good feeling about where they were going to be going, before Alien 3 came out, before Predator lay dormant, before the Alien versus Predator films and Prometheus and all of these kind of weird choices and overthinks that people did. And there's been great moments throughout those. Alien Earth I really liked. There's been Alien Romulus I really enjoyed. You know, there's been the odd ones. And like you say, I think all of the Predator films have got something to enjoy in them, in the same way that I think all of the Terminator films have got, but none of them were Terminator 1 or Terminator 2. None of them were Alien or Aliens. And, you know, I'm not going to say that Predator Badlands is either, but I would say that this is the film I wanted to come out in 1992 when we'd had Aliens and when we'd had Predator and Predator 2 and we'd heard that they were set in the same universe. This is what I wanted then, and it's just taking them, you know, 30 or 40 years to actually get around to making it. So I'd say it's a really big recommend. Quick reminder that we appreciate feedback. chinstroker@punter@gmail.com. Check out the Facebook page. Check out our friend shows, including the Rewatch Project, Film Bastards, Good, the Bad and the Odd, Talk With That Rhythm, and Entertainment Landfill. But for now, that is us, and we will see you again soon. Goodbye.
Goodbye.